Hi, I'm Tyson Franklin, and welcome to this week's episode of the Podiatry Legends podcast. With me is Jonathan Small. I was keeping count, this is his 9th time he has been on the podcast, and I will admit every single episode that Jonathan is on here kicks ass. They are very popular, and I cannot wait to find out what we're talking about today. So, Jonathan, welcome once again to the Podiatry Legends podcast.
Thanks for having me back. It's always great fun. I'm looking forward to this one.
Can you believe it's been 9 times?
No, I didn't think we were up to that number. I didn't realize we were that close to double figures. We'll have to kind of have a celebration one for double figures.
Yeah, I was talking to someone yesterday. I said, I'd love to get you back on the podcast. And I went, but I've been on twice before. And I said, well, obviously you don't listen to the show much because Jonathan holds the record and he's coming back on very soon. And they just laughed. So what is today's topic?
So I want to talk to you about the loved ones test. So this was a concept that I've applied to my practice for several years now, and I talked at a foot health show in the UK. I've lost track of when it was this year. I think it was October, but I could be wrong.
Yeah, it was October.
No,
September.
Okay.
September, yeah, October.
I've lost track, and I introduced the concept to the audience of podiatrists and foot health practitioners there about the loved ones test. So something that I've noticed in my practice over the years is that I've changed in how I approach new patient assessments. I always used to see new patients half an hour, deal with them quickly, sort their problem, whatever they're presenting with, give them information to help them and send them on their way. Instead, I introduced 1 hour long appointments, and in that time, I spend a lot of time educating patients about their problems and about their feet. And one of the things that I make sure that I deliver to them is all the options that are available to treat their problem, on the basis that if it was my grandmother or my child or my dog or any other pet or any other relative that I was taking to see a specialist, I'd want the specialist to tell me all of the available options, not just the ones that they offered in their treatment regime.
Okay.
So because obviously, if all that you've got, you've heard the phrase, if all you've got is a hammer, then every problem you see is a nail, isn't it?
Yeah.
And those with the more tools in their toolbox, including onward referral to others, and we talked about this in the previous episode when we talked about what is good podiatry. But the key for me is to apply this loved ones test. What would happen if it was me taking my relative or my pet to a consultation with the specialist? I'd want to get all the available information for the presenting condition. I'd want to know as much as I could about it, all the possible treatment options, and then I can make an informed decision, rather than what I see happening, which is people go to other podiatrists, other foot health practitioners, and they'll just get offered 1 or 2 treatment options that podiatrist or foot health practitioner offers them. And often that doesn't work, so they end up on my doorstep, and I go, did anybody explain to you all the possible treatment options? And they go, no, not at all. I haven't got a clue that all this was available. For instance, when we talk about verrucas, I talk to them about all the available treatment options there are for verrucas. Some not so successful, some more successful. When we talk about fungal toenails, I talk to them about low chances of success, moderate chances of success, and high chances of success, so they can understand all the treatment options that are there. If we're talking about Morton's neuroma, I'll talk to them about using padding or mobilization, manipulations, laser therapy, steroid injections, or onward referral for surgery, because obviously I don't do surgery. And let the patients decide what they want to do with their problem. At the end of the day, they should be giving informed consent for whatever treatment we offer them.
So you're saying, so it's like verruca, for example. Someone comes in with a verruca, and I'm picturing, okay, if it was my daughter, she's 18 years of age, she's a dancer, or she's not a dancer. Well, she is a dancer. She does dancing, but that's not going to be a full-time profession. She's going off to uni very soon. And so she has a verruca. Now, what you're saying is, if I didn't have a Swift machine, for example, I would say these are all your options. And one of the options is using Swift. I don't have that machine, but I know 2 people that do. if you wanted to go down that route. So it's actually showing them all the options. And I'm thinking for my daughter, knowing that she loves dancing, she wants a problem fixed fast, she probably doesn't want to use acids or have it dragged out. That would be the option that I would probably do for my daughter.
That's right. That's right. So as a podiatrist, I'm talking to your daughter. If they apply the loved ones test and think about it being their daughter, they'd want to know all the options that are available, including Swift, that maybe they don't offer.
Okay. And what's the response when you've been talking to patients and you, for example, whatever treatment that you're actually offering? So do you have a shockwave, for example?
Yes, I have shockwave, yeah.
Okay. You have a laser, I take it?
Yeah.
Okay. So when someone comes to you, what sort of things are you telling them that you don't have for certain problems that you would normally refer on?
So Swift is a classic example. I don't have a Swift machine. I spent too many years hurting patients with cryotherapy before needling came along. Needling is my the one that I prefer to do. But that isn't the only one that I offer them. I offer them all the treatment options from no treatment whatsoever, occlusive taping, weak acids, strong acids, cryotherapy, low-level laser therapy, needling, referral for Swift, Verotop. I don't know if Verotop's reached you over there in Australia. And also I talked to them about imiquimod and surgical excision as well, just so they've got all the information. And I actually put these as blogs on my website as well, telling them all these available treatment options. So once they've had this information, I then follow it up with an email to them with all the details of all the treatment options.
And what sort of response have you had from the patients so far going down this path?
Yeah, so they've loved it. They've loved the amount of time and effort you take to explain things clearly to them. I'm not in a rush with them because I allocate that hour to go through their problems with them. And yes, they're often blown away with the amount of knowledge. And certainly when I've had students in with me, podiatrists or foot health practitioners, colleagues or students, as I say, they really are impressed with the amount of knowledge that we share with our patients, because the better educated they are, the more likely they are to follow the treatment plan that they choose, and more likely therefore to have successful resolution.
And I take it you don't charge a normal fee for when you're spending an hour with someone for that initial consultation?
No, so you know me, I have
yeah, I do. I know you. Yes.
So because they may present with more than one condition, I have the tiered fee structure, and that tiering reflects the number of conditions they might present with and the number of assessments that might take place in order to deal with their presenting conditions. So we have this range of fees. It's currently it ranges from £98 to £224, which is roughly doubled for Australian dollars.
Yeah, it's $1 million in Australia. Our dollar's so bad with the rest. I was with when I was over in Arizona in October in Dave Freeze, and we kept talking about how bad the Australian dollar was. And he said, "Oh yeah, that'll cost like $120 US." I'll equate that to Australia. It's probably $4 million Australian. I said it feels like that, Dave, sometimes. So okay,
let's
let's
not get into the currency debate after what happened with our economy recently. So.
I know. So with this new philosophy or the way that you're approaching new patients, when did you start doing this, and what was the thought process behind making it? Because you haven't always done it this way.
No, I haven't. No, I guess the real catalyst was probably when COVID hit. I started to move towards more and more of this with patients, but when COVID hit and we had longer appointment times with gaps.
Oh yeah, true.
Meant that I just slowed down, and I put more into the appointment for the patients. And they all seem to love it. It went down really well. So I've just continued that as we've come out of COVID, and it serves the clinic well. It leads to great reviews for us, because they've been elsewhere before they get to us, and possibly because of our strap line, where we say we fix the feet that others can't fix. So maybe they've tried others, and then they land on our doorstep, and they're delighted to have that amount of time, information, and knowledge shared with them.
Yeah, it's like that. I mentioned it on the talk that I did last week, when I said slow is smooth and smooth is fast. And to give to people listening to this, to give that some context, they were talking about Navy SEALs, that when they were first deployed out of helicopters, initially their whole idea was to get out of the helicopter as fast as possible. But by doing that, they were jumping too early, they were falling over the top of each other, they were getting injured. So, and it was ended up taking them so long to actually get out of a helicopter. But they realized if they just did it slowly and just took their time, just slow as smooth, and ended up, by doing that, they ended up getting out of the helicopter faster. So it sounds like that's what happened with you with COVID, when
I think that
all of a sudden you had more time. You went, okay, I'm now going to be smooth, but smooth ended up being fast for your practice.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. Yeah, I would agree with that. I think the other advantage here is that with our NHS, GPs are allocated 10 minutes with the patient to deal with the problem. So you can imagine the contrast when they come to a clinic like mine, where they get an hour to discuss their problem rather than just those 10 minutes. That they get with the GP, and often, I'll hear of colleagues who'll spend an hour with patients, but they'll spend it just talking about the weather or their holidays or whatever. I fill that hour full of information and knowledge for them around their condition.
And also, Tim, what sort of response do you have, like no-show rates? Do you get people to pay a deposit when they book out an hour, or what happens if somebody doesn't turn up? There's like a whole hour you're sitting around twiddling your thumbs.
I never twiddle my thumbs. There's always something to do, isn't there?
Yeah.
In a practice. It gives me a chance to do my systems and my recall and reactivation Joy talking to me about. So we rarely get no shows on new patients. Well, we rarely get no shows at all. We don't do a deposit system. It is something that we've looked at and thought about doing, but it's just not necessary. If they don't show, then they get charged. They know there's a charge that they'll be applied to them, and they end up rebooking and coming in when they remember to come in.
Okay. Or I suppose having an hour too. If somebody said, "Oh, I'm sorry, but I'm 15 minutes late," you go, don't worry about it. It'll be fine, because it hasn't put you out. You then just got 45 minutes. So you just speed up a fraction and still get through the same information.
Absolutely, there is the advantage of that, and there's a limit as to how late you can deal with them. But you can usually do something with them, even if you just say, look, I can't do a full assessment, I can't give you full information, I can only do any emergency treatment because that's all the time you've allowed me, and we'll get you back soon to complete the assessment. But the other advantage is if they come in with an acute problem like an ingrown toenail, then if they want to, I can quickly do a nail surgery with them. Once we've discussed the treatment options, so they get it sorted in one hit and one visit, which delights them as well.
Yeah, I was going to say, what happened? Do you ever get any patients where they sit down and the problem's that simple that you're then talking to them and you don't drag it out for an hour just because you got an hour?
No, I don't. But I'll take the opportunity to educate them. So I'll get children in with verrucas, okay?
Yeah.
And verrucas don't take long. So, you're going to talk to them about treatment options. If they're young, you're going to be trying to say to the parents, look, you don't have to treat this. You can leave it alone. It is going to clear up of its own accord. But I'll use the session to educate the child about their feet, and we'll talk about the number of bones in the feet, and I'll get them to listen to their pulse with the Doppler, just so that they're understanding that their feet aren't just something at the end of the body that they ignore for the rest of their life. It's a living part of their body, and it's a fascinating part of the body. And maybe one day, you never know, that might lead to them showing an interest in joining the profession. But certainly the parents enjoyed us taking the time with the child and with themselves, just to educate them around good foot health. We've also got our dog. She's an empathy dog. She's a trained empathy dog now, and so she'll come down and engage with the children, and they love that as well. So when she's here, so there's ways that you can create a great customer experience without dragging out the hour.
You have an empathy dog.
An empathy dog. Sweep is a trained empathy dog.
Was it? Did you have that dog when I was over there visiting you?
Yeah, no, we didn't. No, but you've seen her on video when we've done Spartans. I think you've seen her on video.
Yeah, I've seen the dog pop up. I didn't. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, no, you didn't have it when I was there.
No,
And
that's
how do you
right.
train a dog as an empathy dog?
Well, that's all my wife's hard work. She's been training her. She just had the right temperament to work with. She's mainly autistic children. She goes into schools and helps them out, getting them settled into their school day in the morning. She's currently got
Does
about
their
4
homework for
children.
them?
Yeah,
Puts a little paw up
but
there and does a homework.
She does pretend to read with them.
Yeah,
She's trained to look like she's reading a book with them and stuff like that. So
that's
yeah,
funny. I was only saying yesterday, our dog was sitting on the lounge, and I said, oh, they've got a certain name for a particular dog, and because our dog's only small. And I said, yeah, like next year with my daughter being at uni, I thought, oh, we might travel a little bit more around the country. And I thought, why don't we just take the dog with us? Why don't we take the dog on the plane? I said, she's like a special needs dog. And I said, the dog actually has special needs, but it would be for itself.
Yeah, we were quite keen if we could get Sweet into places based on the fact she's this therapy dog.
Yeah.
You know, they allow for assistance dogs like guide dogs, but we can't get her past anything for as a therapy dog, unfortunately. But yeah, that leads me on quite nicely, actually, Tyson, to the travel plans. For me, it's a bit different because of having Sweet now. But obviously, one of the things that's in the pipeline is me coming over to Australia.
Well, before you get on to that, I was going to ask, with what you're doing with the loved ones test, is that going to be part of the Work Smarter, Not Harder? Have you already introduced that into that? So people that don't know, so people who don't know, Jonathan does a 1 day and a 2 day workshop called Work Smarter, Not Harder. And I've spoken to a lot of people in the UK who have actually done it, and they all rave. It's absolutely fantastic. So our plan next year in 2023 is to bring you over to Australia and actually do this 2 day event. So continue.
Yeah, absolutely. I will be rewriting for the Australian audience, and I may well include bits about the loved ones test in there. I always find with a lot of these things that I've been doing things for years. I'm 32 years in the profession. We're old school, aren't we? Things.
Well, can I just say something for a sec? You said you're going to rewrite it for Australia. What? Why are we different? I know when I'm in America. I know when I'm in America, and the Americans will always say, when they go to impersonate Australian, and they go, "Hello, governor," and I go, "We don't say that, please. We don't say that."
I won't be rewriting it in a different language.
Here we go. You'll sit down and go, "Okay, well, welcome convicts," and everyone will just look at you and go, "Jonathan, settle down." So.
No, just some of the concepts maybe more applicable if I tweak them for the Australian audience. You don't have in Australia foot health practitioners, for instance. You just have the podiatry profession. So we've got
podiatry assistants that can help you with certain things, but not foot health practitioners that could be working with you or in opposition to you. We can't do testimonials, which you can in the UK and you can in America. So there are some differences that you'd have to tweak it so you don't get some lunatic in the room throwing the hand up there, go, "Oh, it's okay for you in the UK, but that won't work here."
That's right. Yeah. So I need to look at that. But yeah, the loved ones test, I might add that in there as well. It depends how the content's coming along for it.
Well, I think you'd have to, because it is all about working smarter, not harder. That loved ones test is working smarter.
Yeah.
And it's teaching you to actually work with others in the profession that may have a piece of equipment that you don't have. And it's probably wrong to not let your patients know that, hey, there are other ways of treating something.
Absolutely. It reminds me of when I first got a low-level laser therapy unit way back in the 1990s. And I wrote to all my local colleagues and said, "Look, I've got this piece of equipment I've invested in. If you've got any patients that you're not managing to get resolved, which at the time was for verrucas and for musculoskeletal conditions, then send them over to me. I don't want to hang on to them. I'm not trying to steal them off you. I'm trying to help your patients. And just refer them, and I'll make sure they come back to you." And at that time, Nobody in the podiatry profession, the state registered chiropody profession, referred into me. They did from the non-state registered sector, which then went on to become the FHP sector. They seem to embrace it a lot more readily. This cross referral, I think, is the big thing that's missing in our profession is that cross referral to colleagues. And there's too much of, well, if I can't fix it, then you go to the doctor with it, and it's like, no, you go to another podiatrist with it, who might be able to help you. It's a bit like, and I say this to members of the public when they, lots of public forums on Facebook for foot conditions, and they'll say, oh, I saw a podiatrist, they did no good, so I went to a sport therapist or something. And I say to them, if you went to a hairdresser and you had a bad haircut, would you give up on all hairdressers? Yeah, or would you just go and find another hairdresser that did you a good haircut? Yeah, and it's this thing that they sometimes jump to the conclusion that they just give up on podiatry, and we've got so many solutions that we can offer between the whole profession, colleagues, etc. That we ought to be cross referring a lot more, and to other therapists that can support as well, whether that's physiotherapy or sports therapy or whatever.
Yeah, I think there's two problems I think we're facing. One is the people or the podiatrists that have the specialized equipment that you may not have, don't tell anybody that they've got it. Yeah, so that they're keeping that to themselves as well. They might market it out there, but they don't actually approach other podiatrists, not these days, and say, hey, I have this, this, and this. If you have any patients with this, please let me know. So that's one part of the problem. And then the other part of the problem is the podiatrist who's too scared to refer the patient somewhere else because they feel they might lose them. But
yeah, I know.
If you have that relationship, if you're talking to your colleagues, like if you and I were in a town that wasn't too far away from each other, I would feel quite comfortable referring a patient to you, and I assume you would probably refer back to me. We would have different skill sets, whereas I think some podiatrists feel, like you said, if I can't fix it, it can't be fixed, not realizing that, but you don't have all the equipment. It might be something else.
Absolutely, and then you're not serving the patient best. And if you apply that loved ones test, your own grandmother or your own child isn't getting the best care, and you'd be appalled at that. You'd want them to have that best level of care, and if that meant referring on, then you help them with that onward referral. You don't send them out and leave them into the ether of the public domain, not having a clue what to do to solve the problem. Just because you couldn't fix it, you should guide the patient to help them find the solutions. And they will appreciate you. They will come back to you because you'll be a trusted supplier of their foot services, because they'll know that if it's something you can't deal with, that you would refer it on for them. But often you'll be able to deal with it, so you don't lose the patient just because you do an onward referral.
Yeah, I think part of the other problem is too, and I don't think this is just related just to podiatry, and I don't think it's anyone who would actually be listening to this podcast. So what I'm about to say does not apply to you. But I actually think in every profession, including podiatry, there are some real dumbasses. There's just podiatrists that are they're not very good. They've flown under the radar for years. I remember having someone on, and we were talking about the legal side of podiatry. And I said, how have these people flown under the radar for so long, given such bad advice? And I had one just recently, a couple of weeks ago, when I was talking to somebody, and they go, they just do. They don't ruffle any feathers. If there's a complaint, they just pay the patients off, and they just stay. And everybody, and most people know, like, you might have a podiatrist in your area that you may clash with, you may not like for whatever reason. Doesn't mean they're a bad practitioner, but there'll be other ones that in your area that are just not good. They're just really average. And normally they're the same ones that you've never seen at a conference. You've never seen at a workshop. You've never seen at any event. They do all their learning supposedly online, reading books, reading journals, but they don't, because you can tell by the information they give patients when you're then talking to that patient. And this happened to me a couple of weeks ago, talking to a lady, and I was just shaking my head with how bad the advice was given. So if you know podiatrists out there that are like this, I don't know how we actually fix the problem.
Absolutely. I think in any profession, you get good and bad within the profession. But I
Yeah,
think the other thing that happens, Tyson, is that if you're seeing a patient regularly for years, is that you stop reassessing them and you just they turn up, you treat whatever you've always treated, and they go away. I've had it recently. A colleague's just retired in our area, and so I'm picking up some patients from theirs, and they're coming in, they're rife with fungal infection, and they've not been told they've got fungal infection.
yeah.
And it's like, but he told me to put cream on my feet, and I'm going, but that's not going to work if you're rife with fungal infection. You need to get on top of the fungal infection, and it's like because they just become that cut and come again chiropody sort of patient. You don't really apply it as if they were a new patient, and I think that doesn't serve the profession well either.
Well, I think this podcast that has come out already is episode 235. And on that particular episode, we're talking about how the podiatrist was doing routine care for a number of years. It was in the NHS first, then was doing home visits, and did this for about 17 years before setting up her own practice. And what was really interesting, I actually said to her, what was it like doing the transition? So the episode's called Career Transition. Kirsten Sinclair, in case you're wondering.
Oh, yeah.
And I said, what was the transition like? I said, to be doing routine podiatry care for so long, I said, you would have lost your skills. And she said, yeah. And I had to relearn them if I really wanted to pick up that particular MSK and biomechanical and sports. So she pulled her finger out and she actually went along, did events and learnt that part. And I think some podiatrists, they've been doing routine care for a long period of time. They hide within themselves, not realizing you can still learn stuff. You don't have to stay that way.
No, absolutely. You just get re-engaged. And Kirsten's a great example for how her career's changed completely as a result of her doing that. She's going great places with the laser therapy now.
Oh, massive change. And I found it really inspiring. And I've had, and I mentioned it on that particular episode where some people have complained that, I don't know, I had a really bad boss. I just did general foot care for the first 2 years and therefore I left podiatry. And I'm thinking, well, you could have the worst job in the world. It's still up to you in your spare time to go and learn stuff. When you get your 4 weeks holiday per year, and I think in America it's only 2, but when you get your 4 weeks holiday per year in Australia, you don't have to spend the whole 4 weeks in Europe touring around. You can use some of your holiday time to educate yourself. So I think if you're not getting it from your employer, then it's up to you to learn it yourself and maintain your skills. Don't whinge and complain about it.
And going back to when I started and you were working for the NHS.
In the old days.
It was very often, the case that the NHS wouldn't pay for it and you didn't have any spare money for it. But nowadays, with all the free information and lectures and everything that's available online, you've got no excuse for upping your knowledge and learning more and giving that information to your patients.
Yeah, well, that's what I've told that to some new graduates. Said, when I used to take the horse and buggy to university each day, back in the old days, but it was like what we were taught in 1988 to what they're teaching now. There's a vast difference, but it was really up to me to stay up to date and keep on top of what was coming out, reading information. It doesn't mean that I spent every waking moment doing that. I also had a lot of fun.
Yeah.
But I think if you're in an employment position or you're in a job where you're not being exposed to MSK stuff a lot, but you're really interested in that area, just do it in your spare time. Like I said, there's so much stuff online, so many courses that you can actually do.
Yeah, absolutely. And as you get all that knowledge, then you can share it with your patients, and then you'll satisfy the loved one tests for them.
I love this loved ones test. I think it's when you first said the loved ones test, for some reason in my head, I got an image of the young ones.
Yeah.
The TV show The Young Ones.
Yeah.
There'll be certain people of a certain age who will remember the young ones.
Yeah.
And
they've been re-showing them on telly in the UK.
there's certain shows from the from early on that they probably couldn't show anymore because there'd be all these soft people would get upset that, oh, I feel offended.
You and I could make a great video. We could rerun Bottom together. You remember Bottom? Did you get Bottom over there?
No, it doesn't ring a
Oh,
bell.
you've got to keep an eye. I'll send you a link to Bottom.
Bottom.
Aid Edmondson and Rick Mail from the Young Ones. And they just had a blast together. I mean, crazy antics. I'll send you, need to look at the video and then you'll see why I suggested it.
Okay. And then in the show notes, when you send me that link, I will put that link in the show notes on my website so people can go and check out Bottom.
Yeah.
So with just going back one sec, so we've got the loved ones test. I love that idea. And you're going to adapt that and then also adapt the work smarter, not harder to Australian language and what we do over here. So I'm really looking forward to it. So I just want to let people know it's going to be sometime in July or August 2023. We haven't got the exact date figured out yet, but it will be happening. And there's probably going to be about 30 places. And we're only going to be running one workshop. And probably in Brisbane. That's our thinking at the moment. We discussed all this last night.
Yes, it has all come back rather quickly. That's momentum for you.
We were talking about it last night. So then all of a sudden we went, yeah, we should basically do this. So I'm thinking anyone who's listening to this, reach out to either Jonathan or myself. Our details will be in the show notes. If you're interested in the Work Smarter, Not Harder, and you're thinking, can you put me on the waiting list? Just let us know because I think it will book out really, really fast. And like I've seen you speak over in the UK. I've met a number of people in the UK who've done your Work Smarter, Not Harder, who've also been on the podcast as well. And every one of them just said it was a fantastic 2-day workshop. Well, it started as 1 day, then you did a second day. Yeah. We're just going to put it together.
Yeah.
What was it when you started the workshop? What was the thinking behind it? What made you decide to do it in the first place?
Yeah, so it all started way back in 2007 when around that time. Our Society of Chiroptists and Podiatrists at the time put out a poll results from a poll across private practitioners. We all added our 2 pence into this poll and they collated it all. And it showed that my practice was way above in all areas what everybody else was doing. I was off the scale compared to everybody else. And it was like, well, if I'm doing it differently and doing it successfully, maybe I ought to share that message. So I did way back then with my local branch of the society, and it was quite funny because they were having shared some information. It was only an hour talk at the time.
Yeah.
One of the my colleagues there said, "Oh, I can see you one day talking on stage with this around the UK." Well, then my lad was born, and I took a backward step because I wanted to be around when he was born. So for a few years I did that, and then of course your book came out when I think that must have been about 2012, 2011, something. I don't know when.
2014.
2014 is when you did that, yeah. And obviously, that was saying similar stuff to what I'd already got in my head from my experience in my practice. So then it was okay. I'll start running this again, and Osgo got launched. Osgo, which is the private healthcare support business for private podiatrists.
Yeah.
And I reached out to Tony Gavin and I said, I've got something that would fit really well onto your platform. And so in 2016, I spoke at the first Osgo Live and launched Work Smarter, Not Harder there. And the rest, they say, is history.
Well, it's surprising that it really took off because I remember you saying in 2016 that your first presentation you did with Osgo was terrible.
Yeah, I was useless.
I saw you in 2019 and you were like, I tell you, a seasoned professional up there. Yeah, music blasting and you're screaming through the microphone and standing ovation. So, well, what a turnaround from what I heard you told me how bad you were in 2016.
Yeah, I was.
Well, that's encouraging for everybody, I think. Well, it is. I remember one of my earliest talks that I did was, and I remember putting the title out there, it was How to Create $1 Million Podiatry Clinic. And you should have seen the flack that I got emails from podiatrists saying, how dare you say that. It's impossible. You can't do that. I'm going, well, but it is possible. And they were like nasty emails telling me that no, you can't put that statement out there. I'm going, but it is possible.
You look back in UK podiatry and you'll see where I got knocked, slated for saying £1,000 a day. Absolutely got jumped on.
Yeah.
And it was like, but I do it regularly. And now it's £2,000 a day. And they're just being shocked now because they just wouldn't accept it. But there's always the only people who knock you. Yeah, because they just can't fathom. They can't fathom why they're not able to achieve the success that you've had yourself.
Oh, what I reckon the registration board should do, especially here in Australia, when a podiatrist puts another complaint in about another podiatrist for supposedly breaking the rules, which there was a guy in Cairns who used to do it with me all the time. I think whenever the complaint comes in, the registration board should also go and suss them out and go through them with a fine-tooth comb, because you normally find like the people who are the knockers, the trolls, the people that are saying nasty things about other people, usually must be doing something themselves to think that you must be doing something wrong.
Maybe you're right.
It's I saw this got nothing to do with podiatry, but it was somebody mentioned this about racism once, and they said for someone to call somebody else a racist who may not be, must feel like they might be a racist themselves, so they must feel like they must stand up and say something.
Yeah, it's like projection of your own thoughts, isn't it?
Yeah, and I remember some lady said something to me once, and I just read something about this, and I said to her, I read somewhere that for you to stand up for another race that's not you, do you feel that you're better than them? Because they can't stand up for themselves. And they went, and also, I've never thought about it that way.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that may actually apply to the profession as well. People that complain about other podiatrists, maybe they're doing something that they think is dodgy.
Yeah, maybe. I think also it's and you put it in on your talk this week. You said about doing something that would shake the profession, make sure that you're doing so, and when you do that, you're going to attract people who are going to criticize you because they don't want it shaken for whatever reason.
Yeah, that's what I was talking about, the three crucial business things: marketing, sales, and delivery. And whenever you say the word sales, podiatrists go, ooh. They don't like that word, but they don't realize all sales is education. It's really adding value. And that's what you're doing with the loved ones test, is you're educating the patients, which is all part of the sales process. And people don't realize that's all sales is education. And then it's up to the patient to decide whether that fits with what they're doing.
Yeah, absolutely.
And if it doesn't, so be it. So, Jonathan, we said we weren't going to make this one a long one. So I'm going to thank you for coming on the Podiatry Legends podcast, sharing the loved ones test, which I think is an awesome test, and every podiatrist should think about it. There's a few things that I've said that I'm probably going to edit out from this particular episode, but I never edit the video. So I always say to people, "Go
uncensored."
Yes, the uncut version. But I'm looking forward to getting you over here in 2023, July, August sometime, for the Work Smarter, Not Harder event. So thank you very much for coming on. Well. It's going to be great.
Thanks once again. Yeah, it's going to be awesome. Thank you.
So this wraps up your 9th edition of the Tyson Franklin and Jonathan Small podcast. So Jonathan, like I said, every time you're coming on here, you always add a lot of value. I think it gets everybody thinking, which is why your episodes have always been so popular. So thank you very much.
Thanks for the opportunity to share the knowledge.